Hey, I just wanted to kind of walk through how I structure a week in my seventh grade math class teaching here in Honolulu, Hawaii. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So it's a different screen. Okay, so I believe this is the right scene. So on my Google Drive, I have all of my files. So you can see my drive. And then I have in here weekly slides. So I make slideshows by the week that I project on the big board in my class, the big TV in my classroom. And then I also have instructions on the whiteboard. But in here, you see them now. One thing that's really helped me is I structure the year based on weeks. So I teach three classes a week, um, four different sections, but the same lesson. So 12 times, which is nice because then I really only have to build those three things and plan for our schedule has a 50-minute schedule, a 75-minute schedule on the Wednesday, and a 75-minute schedule on the Friday. So Monday, I see them for 50 minutes, all students, and then I see my classes rotated on the 75-minute blocks the rest of the week. So I build my class to align with those times. And then in here, I also have homeworks, which I have, weekly homework. So I learned this during COVID that it was really helpful. I give out all my homeworks on Monday, they're due by Friday, and then we grade them in class together on the following Monday. So they're really due 1 week apart. And what that has done too is help structure my weeks, as my weeks all have themes and themes that are connected to what kids care about. So a lot of them are like cartoons, Pokemon characters, anime characters, sports characters, anything that I think might relate, Harry Potter, all that good stuff. So that's how I kind of define each week. And then in an average school year, you have roughly about 40 weeks. And I have, I think, 36 or 37 weeks of individualized weekly slides. So what I do then every week, I just go in. So when I start the school year, I start with week 0, and then this would be the one I'm building for the fall, but then this one would have been last year. And then I can kind of click in and you can see like I have the date, I have we're in week 1. I use Roman numerals to kind of teach them that. Here's the character, which would be Meowth, and then I have the schedule up there. You know, I This is really just the first 2 weeks of school are kind of building the Pilina and relationships between students to school, students to self, students to students, students to teacher, kind of building the how things will work. I have agendas, obviously. I go through my pledge that my students say to enter the classroom or a agreement they make. I have do nows, I do go through the syllabus. I do a lot of game-based learning. And then I show them, to start the year, you got to kind of show them around the room and set expectations for each area of the room, as well as the campus, so that they know where their expectations are when they're at the cafeteria or they're at the, music room. And then I do, again, incorporate a lot of games. And then I always leave 5 minutes for cleanup and dismissal. I don't skip on that because it's really helpful to have students help clean up and get things orderly and pack up so that you're not rushing there. And then, I have my games in here. And then, on Thursdays, our students must wear tie and no dress code. Here's our weekly schedule. I do have them raise their hand in my classroom. I also teach them sign language when it comes to certain procedures, like if they want to ask for water, if they need to use the restroom, if they break a pencil, I teach them sign language on that. I start my kids off pretty tough. This is obviously week 0. So our do nows are just really to get them talking, get them thinking about their lives. Again, American Sign Language. I have a bunch of things I know enough sign by now, and I've worked with deaf students in the past, and it's really helpful to create like a way to communicate. And I also love sign language; it's beautiful. So I have these again. I would be talking through this. I would be practicing with students. So, behavior modeling, modeling behavior or for behavior expectations. You're modeling it. You're giving them practice. You're giving them feedback. You're repeating it. You're giving them, like, I always show them how to do it. And then I also, it's funny, it's always funny for kids to have a non-example. So when it comes to getting in and out of our chairs, I like pick it up quietly, but then another round, I like crack it real loud so that everyone laughs. And then I say, well, that's not how we do it. So, but then yeah, I teach them all these procedures of our classroom when they're finished, some of our values, consequences, just with the school and really what I want them to do, you know, learn about our classroom again, you know, games, how do we do hacky sack, which is a game we play, the core values I hope that they kind of know, Kipa and being an Alakai and all the Hawaiian connections when it comes to value structures. But so that's how I structure that. And then they also would get their homework this day, this first day, so that I can kind of see where they're at with their work, and then talking through like student surveys to start the school year. But weeks 0 and 1 are really just going through all the procedures, kind of hear from other students, getting them work done, social justice components. What does it mean to them? Get them started, class syllabus stuff. I do teach them about myself and who I am and what I care about. You know, these are all the things that I try to try to do in my class and in math class. They're gonna use art, they're gonna draw, we're gonna listen to a lot of music. We're gonna learn about Hawaiian culture and connect to Aina. Place-based learning is really, really important. It was our first teacher. High expectations, unlimited opportunities. I try to focus on the whole child. So holistic, social emotional health comes first for me. Rigorous learning, I try to make things relevant to their life. So a lot of the math questions I bring into, examples that my students can connect to and relate to. Affirmation of self and others. So I want them to walk in and feel affirmed in who they are and where they're at, and also acknowledge that they probably want to grow in their math skills. Social consciousness and action. So I do explicitly teach them about social justice and history and righting historical wrongs. Connection and community, customization, active self-direction, anytime, anywhere learning. So they have a couple online programs like Freckle and Khan Academy that I use. Then they will learn math. I'll have them teach, I'll do this project called Life Design. They do drawings with mind maps and building their like abstract thinking memorization projects. So they actually have to recite something for me. Rigor in academics, like I said, rigorous learning. Yes, you will work a lot. And then to start the year, I have them doing relationships exercise where I ask those, questions that lead to love and other ones so that they can build relationships with each other, make them write letters 3 times in the year to themselves. So it's called the letter to self. So it's basically like they're journaling to themselves, setting goals, being intentional, and then reflecting. I do a lot of game-based learning, stretching and movement in games almost daily. So it's an all boys school. So the movement piece is crucial. Stretching is so crucial. Just having fun with them. Like, I love this. Take out your magic marker out of your pocket and then draw me a golf ball. And then they just draw a golf ball and say, okay, now drop the golf ball, draw a golf club, draw a golf. Okay, now take a big swing. And we do that. And like the magic marker stuff is just so fun. And you think kids aren't going to like to do it, but they actually do it. My students participate. They enjoy it. They like to be goofy. They like to have fun. They like to not just be sitting in a desk for 75 minutes. Technology, we use a certain tools. I teach at a Catholic school, but I say we have religious discussions about all religions. I aim to bring a lot of fun and joy, a ton of projects, project-based learning, which I can kind of walk through two per quarter, although I think it's actually across the year. I think I have 7 big projects, so it's a little bit less than 2 per quarter. They collaborate, group projects, a lot of dyads, one-to-one, especially in class. Extracurricular focuses, I want them to exceed and excel in their sports and their clubs. Gallery walks, moving around the classroom. I do a lot of stations. So, have 5 different stations where they can be in a group and then, work on this for 10 minutes. And then you move to the next station, work on this for 10 minutes. move to the next station. It's a lot more work on a teacher, but it works wonders. And then we do watch some movies. I have my students watch A Silent Voice, which is about bullying. It's an animated film. I have my students watch Happy, which is a documentary on positive psychology and happiness. I have them watch a couple other films. Oh, The Legend of the Eddie Aikau, ESPN 30 for 30. So that's like a lot about Hawaii and selflessness. So we watch movies in my math class, and it's not just for sub days, but I have them do that. I do have sometimes where students can do AMAs, which are Ask Me Anything, so they can ask me about my life. One thing that's important to start is I have a slide deck that introduces the students to me and why I'm teaching and what I love and who I care about and people in my life that are important to me. It makes them see me not just as the guy that gives them math questions, but I have family and that I have former students and I have people that care about me, and that helps them kind of recognize my humanity as a teacher and a kumu. And then also I give them a chance to share about their families and their histories and what they wish I would or what they want me to know about them. And then I do have four big tests. So my four big tests are like Guru from Despicable Me, SpongeBob and Patrick from SpongeBob SquarePants, Donkey Kong, and then Mario and Luigi. So I have drawings on the test so that they are a little bit more engaging. You know, my inputs, I think relationships are number one when it comes to teaching, rigor and relevance. So those are the three R's: relationships, rigor, and relevance. But I like relationships, relevance, and then rigor just because I want it to be important to their life, project-based learning. I want them to be in an environment that's reflective of their identities and who they are. And that's really important. Got to make your classroom smell good and look good and like have student artwork on the wall. I do a project where every student that I've ever taught at my school still has their Amakua, their spirit animal drawing on the wall. And students then come back 5 years later and are like, "Oh, where's my drawing? Where's my drawing?" Technology, fun, whole child, Hawaiian culture, brotherhood. At TFA we learned the no nonsense nurture. Tough love. It's what I got and it's what I give out. But I want them to have autonomy and mastery, community, respect, safety, kindness, faith, all those things. This is the math stuff. You'll see this in your class too. There are standards that I try to hit. And then we have textbooks, but I've actually built my whole curriculum, so I don't make my students buy the textbooks anymore. Some things that are important to me in the class is I use only wooden pencils with my students. And I have my reasons for that. Essentially, I had some students get into fights over the mechanicals in the past, so we all just use number two wooden pencils. That way, they're really interchangeable. If one breaks, you can just go borrow one of mine, and they can take it and keep it really. But I do ask them to bring that. Colored pencils, we do a lot of art with colored pencils, and they grade others' homeworks with the colored pencils. And then really important are the expos, because one of the thing that I think I do really well is, I know a lot of old school teachers did this, but the whiteboards are amazing to me because I can give immediate corrective feedback or positive feedback. I can ensure 100% participation. And so many students, if I like cold call or ask students, all right, what's 7 times -4? I'll have four students raise their hands out of 20. So it's just not a really good indication of who actually knows. So it's that immediate feedback and check for understanding. So I use whiteboards. And I just make sure that they bring their own expos. And then, note taking, three reams binder, they need their laptop, and then paper towels I use in the classroom, box tissues, and then a calculator. I do ask them to bring a calculator. It's really helpful. And then I always try to explain, well, why do we need these things? What am I asking you? And then I just talk about that. I put graded in quotes here because excellence is its own reward, as Auntie Manu says. But a lot of projects, 25%, classwork, 25%. So that's the work they're doing actively in class. And I grade that mainly on completion, not on quality, but just that they are attentive and engaged in the classwork. And obviously, I spot check a lot. So I'm seeing who knows it, who doesn't. Okay, did this student get that? Was he off by a factor of 10 on this one question? Then we got to reteach homeworks. So homeworks, I do take 25%. The second lowest is quizzes and tests. My tests, I do pop quiz them every now and then just so that they're, on it. But I have those big tests that I give out so that they can practice, high stress testing as well as just prove to me that they know what they should know at certain checkpoints. And then I do have participation and behavior. So, I if students really care about their grades, then that might influence them to behave better. But generally, you know, students behave how they behave. But I do want them to participate in class. I have like 50 little squish balls in my classroom and we throw them around all the time. We do the ball game, homeworks. These are all the procedures. This is all from the syllabus. Honor your family, follow directions, never bully. Those are my three main. And then, I have some other ones that I talk them through. Discipline. I tell them I'm like, I am very firm and consistent, especially to start the year. Um, but I do walk softly but carry a big stick. Not obviously not in a, like a threatening way, but I just want to make sure they know that the classroom expectations are set by me and they're really high. I do tell them about what the procedure is. I generally say I don't call the office. I call mom and dad, auntie, uncle, and that deters a lot. I have Velcro in the classroom. I do have a rule of like no throwing things. Throwing thing. I love to throw things, but it's not in a specific area. I don't let them throw things. But when we play the ball game, they're obviously throwing things all over. Procedures, movement activity, wall tour, cleanup and dismissal. More to talk about in the hallways the first day. Procedures. Yeah. How to sit in your chair, how to listen to lectures. I teach them about my grandmother. This is the unconditional value statement, which I think really, really strikes a chord with a lot of students. I tell them that you're meant to be here. I wouldn't be anywhere in the world. I could be anywhere else in the world, but I want to be right here with them. But it doesn't mean I'm going to take it easy on them. And I say it. I don't care about the math. This class is not about math. It's an opportunity for you to become better men, more loving, more open, more generous, more compassionate, more empathetic, more resilient, more strong. And then, yep, seating charts I go through. Don't want to have some student names on there. So, and then, yeah, they have their homework, Google Classroom, syllabus, get their supplies. Summer packet is a big thing I have for them. Just really good stuff after 10 years. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is important because I want them to know the process for grading. So I actually do let them grade themselves, which, you know, you know, I don't know how effective it is, but you know, that's that. So we go through and we grade it ourselves in class, and I do spot check them and I make sure they're being honest. But I ask them a lot of times I let them grade themselves. If I get into a bunch of problems with students not being honest and telling me scores that weren't reflective of where they're at, and then I collect them and grade them, or I have them swap with a partner, and that generally takes cares of that. But I have a process for it. I actually didn't have it on that one, but I have a little thing, a slideshow. Yeah, schedules. That again. I show them like my picture when I was in their grade. This is from a long time ago. So I just build on this year by year. And yeah, it gets really, really big. And then I do have them complete a form that says they read everything, that first one. And then, have projects like this. This is their second project. Their first project, they have to go interview a former student of mine. Their second project, they have to complete Naka's wellness wheel, just checking in with themselves. They have to, build their get to know me board and show me what what kind of ice cream they like, what are their favorite subjects, and then embracing their differences. I built this a couple years ago from the social justice, um, learning for justice, social justice standards, to learn about their friends, their faith, their families, their racial and ethnic cultural group, which, up here in Hawaii, it's very common to talk about their school groups and then their clubs and sports teams. And then I have this in here just so that they can read. I can express pride and confidence without denying the value and dignity of others. This is all the social justice standards from Learning for Justice. Yeah, that's what I, you know, put in some student exemplars are great because then they're not just thinking, oh, Miss Crosner made me do this. Well, they can actually see what a perfect score would be from a student perspective. I should probably sit through those. Don't want student data on there. Yep. That's about it for now.